Have you ever thought about running an ultra marathon, but you're just not sure where to start? Because if so, the next couple of episodes are for you. Even if you've never considered running an ultra, or if you maybe have it as a far out goal, we're going to be talking about running your first ultra marathon. So, this is going to be great for you if you're thinking about this. Maybe this will open up a possibility for you that you didn't even think was there before you listened. And it's also going to be for you if you are helping to crew someone else's ultra marathon. So, we're going to be doing a series. Today is episode 1 of 2. We're going to be talking about you as the runner and how to complete your first ultra marathon. If you are a seasoned ultra runner, I'm sure that you can get some good nuggets of information from this too. And then in part 2, we're going into how to crew an ultra marathon. So stay tuned. What's up, runners? Welcome to the show today. We are talking all about ultras because this is a big thing that has been a part of Kevin's journey. And we've gotten a lot of questions over the years since Kevin has started this whole ultra marathon journey of his. Let's kind of start off, Kev, with a little bit of a history. I know that this episode is going to be a lot of Kevin because he is the one that has run the ultra marathon. So we're going to be getting a lot of perspective from him. And I will,
Makes
of
it one of my
course,
favorite episodes.
yeah. So I, of course, am going to offer all sorts of things as well. But let's start off with a little bit of history. So Kevin ran his first ultra marathon at the end of 2020,
In 2020,
correct?
it was a COVID Ultra.
COVID Ultra. So tell us, why did you even want to do this? What was going through your head? I think that we all know what we were experiencing during the time of COVID, but how did you kind of make that shift over into ultra marathoning?
I think a lot of people made weird fitness health journey shifts during COVID
Yeah.
because you could. There was just
Because there were no other races available, right? So you kind of had to make up your own stuff.
races got canceled, then people started doing virtual races
Yeah.
that somehow stuck around, which I find an interesting add-on from
Yeah.
that time, but
They always say runners will run for medals and bananas. So if
that's
you do
true.
a virtual race, as long as you pay the fee, they'll send you the medal.
But they won't send you like a cold, awkward half a banana. So
Thank God.
back in 2020, it was like we in real life runners had were having the campaign around the slogan of run your life. And it was like, what would you do if all the races disappeared? Would you still run?
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I'd still run. Running's so much of who I am, but I'd still want to compete. And if I
Yeah.
couldn't compete against other people in a formal race setting, what would I do? And it opens up so much curiosity. If every all the dynamics of what you currently are doing get flipped on their head, then what do you do? And I
Mhm.
think it just really opened up to I'd see how far I could go.
Yeah.
Because seeing how fast you can go is it's interesting. And I played that game for a while. Seeing who you can beat is interesting. I played that game for a while. But then I got to a point where I was like, I wonder just how far I could go. And
Yeah.
ultras have always been a thing in my head since childhood. My neighbor across the street, 2 doors down, he ran Western States when I was a
Hmm.
kid, before there was a lottery to get in. Back when
Yeah.
you could just drive up and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna run this race."
So funny. Yeah. So if you guys want more of Kevin's background specifically, we've done episodes in the past around Kevin's 100-mile journey. But today we really want to focus more on you. There's also, you can gain a lot of really great information from those episodes as well. But we really wanted to make this one kind of a guidebook in a way to help you decide, number one, if an ultra marathon is actually what you want to do, because like we're about to talk about, it you have to be very clear that this is what you want to do. There's not really a lot of question marks because the training and everything that goes into it, and then of course the race itself, requires a level of commitment and dedication that a lot of other race distances don't. So you really have to build your lifestyle around this ultra marathon. So that's a spoiler alert that we're going to talk more about in today's episode. But where do you want to start us off today, Kev? Because I think that it's important that if someone is listening to this, an ultra marathon can be a huge goal for runners. And I'm really excited that there's a lot more talk about ultra marathons than there ever have been before, because I think a lot of runners, when they think about running, they think about road races. And there's a lot of runners out there that the road race just doesn't appeal to them. And I'm one of those. And I feel myself moving more into this trail. And I've said before on the podcast, and Kevin has pointed this out before too, I think that I would be much more inclined to do a trail ultra marathon before I have a desire to run a road marathon, because there's just a different level of kind of everything involved in it. I think the whole
Yes.
culture of it is different. So if this is something that you're interested in, we hope that today will be that instruction manual to help you on your way.
I think that it's very interesting there because even if this is not something that you're like, oh yeah, I definitely want to do an ultra. If
Yeah.
there's any inkling of maybe, it's a possibility. There are definitely people that are listening right now that are like, that kind of sounds interesting, but I could never.
Mhm.
And you probably can.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you approach it. It's finding the right race. It's finding the right race environment.
Yeah.
It's finding a training plan that's going to work for you.
Mm.
There's a whole lot of ways to do it. I am, how far can I go? But I still always have that. And how fast can I do it? That's always sitting in my head. And there are people, plenty of people in the ultras that I've done, that their pure goal is getting to the finish line before the final cutoff.
Yeah.
It's really much more of a how far can I go?
I
And
mean, even one of your friends that helped inspire your journey into the ultra marathon world, that was always his goal too, was just finishing by the cutoff.
I think he was the last person across the line in a couple of the races that he's done.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. That is a lot of hours out there continuing to propel yourself forward.
Yeah.
I
Which
think
is a whole different level of preparation and endurance than even you. You run 100 miles, but you do that in 18 to 21 hours. That's much different than someone that's out there for 32 hours.
yeah, it's good timing on this thing. We are in professional ultra running. We're in the highlight season right now
Yeah.
because we had Western States was a couple of weeks ago, and then Hard Rock was last weekend, and then in 3 weeks, I think, is UTMB over in Europe. So
Bad Waters this week too, isn't it?
Badwater is in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah,
it's in July.
for some reason, I think it's late this year.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, one of the reasons I even know when Bad Water is because it's usually around your birthday, because one of our old cross country runners, her dad has run the race multiple times, and she always had to crew him on her birthday.
Yes.
And her birthday's today. So it popped up on my Facebook feed.
Yeah, but I think it's late this year. I don't think it's next weekend. I think it might even
Yeah.
be the weekend after.
Yeah, so really we want all of you to keep an open mind in this episode. So even if you've never thought about doing an ultra, if you even have a little question mark of, I wonder if I could, or maybe that could be interesting, just listen with an open mind. And I think that this world is really open to a lot more people than realize that this is something that could be possible for them.
No, this is definitely a bigger funnel than people would suggest. No. There's only a small sliver of the running population that could even do it. No, it's a lot bigger than people might think.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than people might think. And I think that it just is one of those things that requires a lifestyle change, because I think that if you choose to become an ultra runner, there's so much outside of running that needs to really be considered, as with running at the forefront, right? Your sleep and your nutrition. And that is important no matter what distance you're running. Of course, it becomes even more important as those distances get longer.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think one of the places that I want to start this is simply why in the world would you possibly do this?
Yeah.
But not exactly what are you out of your mind, but specifically, why are you considering doing this is a question that you need to have the answer to.
And I've asked you this question many times.
You probably need a few answers, quite frankly, because and you need to have a firm resolve in them, because after several hours of running, your first reason may not work anymore. And it may work again later in the run, but maybe for a little while you need another reason. And I'm just going to grit through it. I want to do it to prove to myself I can cross a finish line. The finish line does not matter that much when you're, say, 6 hours in and expecting another 6 to 10 hours to go, let alone some of these races where you're 12 12 hours in and
Yeah.
expecting another 24 hours to go. The excitement of a finish line, a picture that you can post on Instagram,
Yeah.
a shiny buckle, these are not things that are going to inspire you to keep going for the next many hours. There has to be something more than I'm going to upload it to Strava and I'm going to get some kudos. It needs to be a lot bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I think that you need more than one.
Definitely. I would agree with that. And I think that reason is also allowed to change as you continue on your journey as well. Because I ask Kevin that question every single time he decides to sign up for an ultra marathon. What's the goal? Why are you doing it this time? And it's not to criticize or make him second guess himself in any way. It's to help him realize what is the reason. Because the first time he ran it, it was to see if I can. And now he's proven to himself 3 times that he can because he's finished 3 100-mile races. So now what? Now, why are you continuing to do this? Because those reasons may evolve as you continue on your journey as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure this one's going to come back again on the next episode, but it's super important that you ask me that question and that I clarify it to you
Yeah,
because,
as the crew chief, right? Because
yes, as my crew chief.
not as his wife. I need to know that as his wife, of course, but I think I also really need to know it as the crew chief. And we are going to be talking more about my perspective as a crew chief. If you want to crew an ultra race or be a crew chief yourself or someone that you like or that you love, what that
As the race
entails.
goes on, sometimes it's or love or dislike. It varies.
Yeah, but
Hours pass.
it's important for me to know that so that I can remind him of that as well.
Yeah, because honestly, when everything hurts and you're so thirsty and you're so hungry and nauseous and things are cramping up, sometimes you forget the point.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you're gritting through it. You've just been grinding for the
Mhm.
last hour.
Yeah.
And you get to the aid station and see your crew chief. It's nice when you're in a real dark place for them to remind you, hey, remember you paid several $100s for this. This was your reasoning behind it. Okay,
Yeah.
because you need that refresher. It's
Mhm.
helpful. She just ran Western States and then 2 weeks later ran Hard Rock. She has as a tattoo on her thigh so that she can look down and see the message to herself. It says suffer well.
Oh,
That's her why. I'm not purposely just putting myself in this painful place. I'm seeing how I respond in it. It
yeah.
doesn't say suffer, it says suffer well. Don't just be out here and be all grumpy. No one wants that. That's super annoying. Suffer well. You put yourself in a super challenging thing to see what comes up.
Yeah.
Hopefully you like what comes up. That's one of the things that keeps me coming back is I didn't like what came up last time. I want to try and change that. I
Mhm.
want to see how good of a person I can be in very physically and mentally difficult situations.
Yeah. Yeah, because it definitely exposes all of that for sure. And I have not done it myself, but I've seen that happen both in you and the other spectators that I have seen on the courses. I think the other really important thing to understand with ultras is that you need to enjoy what is required to get you to the starting line. You have to enjoy the process when it comes to ultras because just like Kevin said, the shiny belt buckle, the finish line, that post on Strava or on Instagram, that's not going to be enough to get you through 12, 20, 30 hours of running. You have to enjoy the process that it takes to get there. And that goes back also to starting to build your lifestyle around it. And I think that when you go into ultra marathons, that does become a very large piece of your life. I don't think it's healthy to build your entire life around it, to build your entire life around any one thing. I think it's still just a part of your life. It's a part of who you are. But in order to successfully accomplish an ultra marathon, so much of your life has to be directed toward that goal. So it's going to be really important that you enjoy the process because it's going to take a lot for you to get there.
Yeah, this is the same case with any huge undertaking. This doesn't have to be an ultra marathon. Changing jobs, starting a business, starting
Totally.
a new anything that is a huge challenge.
Mm.
You don't really know how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
You have to redesign at least a chunk of your life around this. And like you said, you shouldn't put your entire life because that just puts you in a super fragile place. Like if your entire life is designed around ultra running and you get
Yeah,
hurt, now what are you going to do?
exactly.
That's just a quick spiral into depression. Like you've lost your entire identity. But with most things, you have to always be thinking. I ran really long yesterday. And even today, I still have to think about, and then I had an off day today, about making sure I have enough food going into my body based off
Yeah,
what I did yesterday and what I plan on doing tomorrow. I'm perpetually considering various food
yeah.
just at all times.
And I think it's also important to consider the distance that you want to go because a 50K is much different than a 100-mile race. And also what kind of terrain you want to run on, because this is all part of the process as well. Because the, one of the things that Kevin realized after his last ultra marathon, when he did the long haul 100 here in Florida, is that the way that he was preparing was not going to be adequate or sufficient if he wanted to run Western states because of the strength work and the hill work and the other things that he was missing. And long haul was a very flat race, but Western states is definitely not. And so I think that's a big part of it. Your goal needs to consider the process and the preparation that it takes to actually make that goal achievable. So in order for Kevin to run 100 miles through the mountains, he's going to have to be very dedicated to his strength work and really build muscle. So that is going to help him climb mountains and descend mountains without just destroying his body.
Right.
That's
And
different than running 100 miles on flat ground in Florida
or down a road.
or down a
Because
road.
the
Yes.
first two that I started
Mhm.
down the side of the road.
Yeah, true.
And those are about as flat as they could possibly be.
Yep.
I think the second one might have even been flatter than the first one. Like the
Yeah, I think
Keys
you might
100.
maybe had one or two bridges to run over, but that was kind of the second one was definitely flatter. Daytona was definitely more. There were less bridges in Daytona than in the Keys.
Yeah, because the Keys is just
Mhm.
you're continuously, it's one bridge and then the next bridge and the
Yeah,
next bridge. At Daytona is just as flat as it can be running A1A down,
yeah. I think there
chunk
was
of Florida coast.
only a couple of bridges that you may have had to do because there was that
And they're
one
small
section. Yeah, there was that one
in St.
section where you had to
Augustine.
cross over and then cross back. But yeah,
But it's not much. And yeah, you have to take that into account and realize how
Mhm.
much strength trainings have to go in, how much mobility has to go in. And well, you may not enjoy every aspect. You have to appreciate it the same way that you may not, for the entirety of an ultramarathon race, be like grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah,
You have to appreciate it. You have to appreciate the challenge that you're stepping up to. Because that same desire that shows up and says, yeah, I don't really feel like doing strength work today. I'm not really going to do my strides. I know the schedule says 16 miles on the long run, but I've made it to 14. That's pretty good. All of these little things of not quite doing the whole thing are going to show up again. Like when you sign up for a race that's going to be 12 hours long, if your 12 miler suddenly became a 10 miler over and over again, if you weren't putting strides at the end, it's not that the strides are make or break to your routine. It's that doing this stuff is important because when you get into the race and it starts getting really hard, you're going to check your evidence file and be like, hey, have I had difficult things where I didn't want to keep going and I overcame the challenge? Or most times the challenge came up, did I decide, yeah, you're right. I think I have done enough for today. Because if I have done enough for today is what has regularly played out in your head, you're not going to make it to the finish line. Because enough for the day is then also going to answer the question of, I'm curious how far my body will allow me to go. And your brain will stop you way before your body does. Your brain will start throwing up all sorts of caution flags at you and being like, oh, this is dangerous. We're pretty sure you're going to die way before you're actually in a position where you might actually die.
yeah, and I think that points out that when you train for an ultra, it's not just physical training that we're talking about, it's mental training as well, because everything that you do in your training is going to create some sort of habit. And so when you shortcut things or if you skip things throughout the course of your training, not only will you not be as well prepared physically, but also mentally, you're telling your brain that it's okay to take the shortcut or it's okay to quit just because you're tired. And that's going to show up on race day as well.
Yeah, and it's not like you have to be checking off every single box on the training plan. It's
Of
not that
course.
level, but it's a matter of which habit are you more likely to take because the brain
Mhm.
likes to take the more well-worn path. If you're basically doing all the stuff, but every once in a while, some part of your non-running life comes in and says, we don't have time for this today. That's going to be okay.
Mhm.
If it's always, we don't have time for this, we've done almost enough, we've got most of it in, then that's the path that your brain's going to want to take.
Right. And then that's the result that you're going to have as well.
Yeah, which is not the feeling that you want. DNFs are tough.
Yeah.
They are a difficult experience.
So, another reason that you might want to consider doing an ultra marathon is for the challenge itself, because any goal race or major challenge like this, that is not actually the goal. Completing the race, even though we think that is what the goal is, that's not actually the goal. It is who you become in the process of achieving that goal. That's the real win. That's the real thing that we are all really after. I think that a lot of times people will say that they're trying to prove something to themselves. I think that if we can take it and just shift that just a little bit, instead of having to prove it, moving more towards, I would like to become it. This is the version of myself that I want to become. This is what I want to see that I'm able to do. And I'm willing to do the work necessary to continue to evolve into this new version of myself that's able
Yeah,
to actually accomplish this thing.
I think that's super key. If you sign up for a race with the goal of finishing it and that being the
Hmm.
challenge, you're not going to get everything out of it. You have to be open to the difficulty that the ultra is. The same thing applies with road marathoning. In general, especially if it's the first time you've ever done a road marathon, your long run is probably 20 miles, somewhere in that ballpark. That's where most training plans go to. And then there's the mystery of, and then what happens? In an ultra, if you're running a 50 miler, if
Yeah.
you're running a 100K, you're not getting anywhere close to that distance. And then there's this whole area of mystery of, and then what happens? Like
Yeah.
you want to put in the physical and the mental training, but there's a whole big question mark. And I think once you get up to 100K mile, I think 50K, less so on 50K. Like once you're at 50 miles and above, even if you've done it already, I think there's still a big question mark just
Hmm.
because you're out there for so many hours and so many things can come up. If
Yeah.
you have a shorter race, unless it is absurdly hilly, there's just less time for weird things to show up. And for you have to figure out like, what am I going to do with this? Part of this comes into putting the training in, and then part of it comes into just being fully open to the entire ultra experience. The training is super important. You get to make all of these decisions. At every step in the training process, you get
Hmm.
to decide. And you might think, no, I've got a training plan. This is just what I get to do. You get to decide whether you actually are going to go out and run, whether you're going to put in the work on that day or skip. You get to
Yeah.
decide that you're going to take these very frustratingly small, teeny incremental approaches instead of taking this huge swing before you're ready. Just because you want to run an ultra does not mean that you should sign up and do one in 3 weeks. You need to put in the work. You might be able to do it, but you might hate the entire 3 week process and the whole race itself. And is that really what you want to get out of it? It's a lot more frustrating to take these little steps along the way, but that's the best plan. It's the best
Hmm.
plan to get to any huge challenge that you're going to taking is these small little things that just add up to a huge monumental result.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that I'd like to point out from my perspective, watching Kevin train for all of these races over the last 6 years, basically, is he really enjoys the process of it. When I ask him what he's got planned for the next day, and he's, oh, I'm going to go out and do 20, or I'm going to go do 22, or whatever he's got on his schedule for that day. And then I ask him, what are you practicing? What's the plan? And he's, oh, I'm practicing fueling and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And it's more than just the running. It's also, how am I going to help my body be able to tolerate and survive when I'm out there running 100 miles? He's practicing all of those things that goes into it. And he really enjoys that process because he enjoys experimenting with food or with water or, okay, this time around, I'm going to walk when I'm eating my food. And that way I'm going to give my body different regular walking breaks. I can practice eating my food regularly throughout. I'm going to do it every 30 minutes on this run and see how that goes. And so there's this whole air and attitude of experimentation that Kevin really enjoys and has fun with. So it's really that whole process, not just getting to the finish line and completing the challenge, but it's the process that he's enjoying along the way.
Yeah, it took a couple years to realize that there's no reason to try to run while chewing because you don't have to.
Especially when you're doing 100 miles.
That's the thing, because I was so used to like in a marathon, I'm just going to continuously be running. So whatever
Yeah.
fuel I have to do, I have to figure out how to eat it while running at race pace. But race pace is so slow in an ultra. You're going to take regular stops at an aid station. So you might as well just stop and take down whatever food you're doing so you don't accidentally choke on it. It's going to be worth the
Yeah.
15 seconds.
And that's one of
Really.
the things that I always asked you too, especially in your first couple of races. You would come into the aid station of our car and you just seemed like you were always in a rush. You just wanted to get in and get out as quickly as possible. And I'm like, why are you rushing? Do you realize
Inertia.
how much more how much more running you have to do here? Why are you trying to rush out of here? 1 to 2 minutes is not going to make a difference.
So the answer on the aid station
Yeah.
is inertia.
Right.
If I stop and I keep walking while I'm eating whatever it is, while I'm taking in a bigger drink or whatever it is, I'm still moving forward and my
Hmm.
body's still going. When
Yeah.
I get back to the car and I'm like, I'm still for a little bit, your body just starts and your body's, oh, not running. This does seem really nice. I
Mhm.
like this option. So I always feel compelled to just keep
Yeah.
moving. But you watch some of these ridiculously long ultras of people doing Cocodona 250,
Hmm.
and they'll stop at their aid station where their crew is, and then they'll climb into a camper van and be like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm going to take a 20-minute nap and then wake me back up. So this is the most bonkers
Yeah,
world
but
out.
that's what happens. All right. So is there anything else you wanted to say about becoming the person that does this or deciding every step along the way who that person is?
Well, there's a couple that are more personal to me, and it's taken me a few ultras to get here, but you get to decide whether you actually show up happy and grateful and joyful in the presence of those people who are helping you, or whether you're going to be all snappy and bitey and tired and short-tempered. And this plays out for your crew. This
Hmm.
plays out for the people at the aid station who are volunteering to just hang out in the middle of the woods overnight to help
Yeah.
you accomplish a goal that
Which
that
is pretty amazing if you think about it. Just think about the people that volunteer at ultra marathons. Those are some amazing people.
they really are. You get to decide how you want to include those people around you. Are you going to include people in the process? Are you just going to ask for help on race day? Are you doing this completely solo? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on that, but you get to make that decision. You get to decide all of these things because,
And I think it's always better to decide that consciously versus just allowing it to be whatever it's going to be.
yeah, yeah, because the goal that you've got set out, the finish line is not going to change who you are as a person, but the exhaustion that it's going to have by the time you get there, the training that you put into the race is going to change who you are as a person. It will. The finisher's medal or the belt buckle or whatever you get at the finish, that's not going to do it. But the exhaustion of the race will highlight the changes that took place in the months prior of training. It will really highlight what has been happening for the last few months, for
Mhm.
good or bad. I think that it puts a spotlight on all of those areas.
Yeah. I think it's funny because there's that saying that money doesn't change people. And you could also say the same thing about ultras. It just highlights who you are. Like money doesn't change you. It just brings out more of the true you.
Yeah, miles don't change you.
But they do if you use them consciously and if you use them intentionally, I think, because I think that you can run yourself into a totally different person. You can make that choice if that's the choice you want to make.
I think it's difficult to run yourself into a completely different person on race day alone.
Yes, agreed. I mean in the process.
In the process, I think that
Yes.
you can literally completely change your life. I think that you can change your life entirely. If you've been, I'm going to stick this out and be solo and just grind through and grit myself through, you're probably not going to be the nicest person on race day.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be all that nice to the people at the aid station. I
Mhm.
don't think that you're going to fully appreciate what is available to you in the ultra running community.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing community.
All
So
right.
that was a lot of my stuff on goals.
So All of that is super important. And so we would highly recommend that if you are taking on your first ultra marathon, that you take some time to journal about this. Take some time to think about why you want to accomplish this goal, who you want to be in this process, how you want to commit and dedicate yourself, what else in your life might you need to put aside, because your lifestyle is going to need to change if you are starting to do ultra marathon. So if you are someone that normally goes out to happy hour after work, or you stay up late, these are not things that are going to be conducive to waking up early to go out on a 20-mile run the next day. So you have to understand that there are going to be things in your lifestyle that are likely going to need to change. Your nutrition, your eating, all of that is going to need to change. And you should write down, what are the things that you're willing to change and what are the things that are maybe non-negotiable, and make sure that this is the right goal for you, because that's step one, is making sure that this is definitely the right goal. And after you listen to this episode and we talk about more of this in detail, you can ask yourself, is this even something that I want to do, considering what I might have to change in my lifestyle? Is that something that I want? So let's get into more of the practical sides of things. Kev,
All right,
where do you want to
sounds
start?
good. Okay, how do you pace an ultramarathon when it's a
Okay.
distance that you've never even attempted before?
Yeah.
Because it's real difficult to come up with like, how do I?
So before you jump into pacing, okay, my question is, are we going to talk about the training for the ultra, or are we just going to jump right into the race itself?
I think that a whole lot of the race itself is then immediately connected to the training.
Okay.
Because how do you pace then plays out in what kind
Mhm.
of training is actually required for it.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
do you
Because I
how do you
think one
feel
of like
yourself is played out and how do you train?
Yeah, because one of the big questions, I definitely think we can jump into actual race day, but I think one of the big questions that people have is, what is the training that is required? And there's a lot of question marks, like you said, about that mystery, that gap between the longest race or the longest run that you do in training versus the actual distance of your race. And so that there's a lot of confusion and unknown there.
Okay, so in terms of running volume, I think it depends on what whether you're racing or running an ultra marathon.
Okay.
And I've been watching live streams for the last few weeks of people who are predominantly racing ultra marathons.
Yeah.
I think most people show up and run an ultra marathon, and that affects how much training you really need to do and what type of training. I
Okay,
think
so
in
let's go
general,
from that angle. Let's go
okay,
from the angle of, I want to run an ultra marathon with the main goal of completion.
then most of your training is going to look like not super high volume, but like a good moderate volume marathon training. And then you're going to have probably like a few weekends in, say, like a 3 to 4 month training block where you want to do a double long run weekend,
Mhm.
or maybe the way that your work schedule works out, you can just have one week in there that all of your runs are just like a little bit longer than normal. So you're out and doing 7 mile runs. Maybe that week, can I just do wall to wall tens and then still put a long run on the weekend? There's not, in terms of volume, I don't think a huge difference in terms of what I've done in preparation for a marathon of 26 miles versus an ultra of 100 miles. My
Mm.
overall volume has been relatively close.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, because that, I think, is one of the biggest question marks that they have. People automatically assume that in order to go from 26 miles to 100 miles, they have to do 4 times the training.
Quadruple the mileage.
Yeah, and that's not the truth.
I
You don't
mean,
even really have to do double the mileage, right?
even at the elite of the elite level, you're
Mm.
looking at people who race 100 miles to win and people who race marathons to win. They're running similar volumes. And then it works down to the people underneath.
Yeah,
Some people
because
just,
the human body can only do so much. There's
yes.
only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much that the human body can do, because you still need time to recover from all of this, especially if you are not an elite professional runner where running is your job and you have actually other jobs and other responsibilities that you have to take care of on top of your running. Your body just needs that time to recover. So there's just not enough time for you to go out and run insane amounts of mileage, and it's not necessary either. You can definitely complete an ultra marathon on, what would you say? What kind of weekly mileage would you say is the minimum? If you had to do a minimum and then like a more recommended range, and then of course there's lots of people that would go into a higher range.
What's the race distance? Because the
Oh,
ultra starts at a 50K.
good point. Okay, so a 50K training. So 50K is basically 31 miles. You would train essentially the same way that you would with a marathon.
You're likely now talking about adding in extra strength training.
Yes.
You're tweaking what the training looks like, but volume wise is probably
Mhm.
fairly similar.
About the same. And the same for long runs, right? Your long run would probably be about 20 to 22 miles if you're trying to train for a 50K.
Yes. And then but again, you're gonna have to know the terrain of the course. And it's not that much longer than a marathon. It's
Mhm.
less than 5 miles over a marathon, except I have to climb up and down this mountain. So
So that makes a
volume
huge
wise is good.
difference.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what the training looks like is going to be different, but the volume is probably similar.
Okay.
You
And then
also
what
have
about
a
a
50
50
mile or
miler?
100K.
Yeah, 50 miler and 100K I would put together.
I think now you're starting to say you're going to need some weekends where you're doing double long runs into
Okay.
it.
So
Or
what does that look like?
so to me, I think that you're looking in like 40 to 50 miles per week in general. And
Total?
then what'd you say?
Or for that total or for that weekend?
No, I'm saying 40 to 50 miles a week should be like your general place that you're living when training for the race. And
Mm.
then maybe on a couple of weeks during the training block, you have a bigger spike in there
Okay.
because you do a 20 mile followed by a 15 miler, 5 miles right there. And then you add up some runs over the rest of the week, and you can very quickly get a bump in your volume.
Yeah, so
But
when Kevin talks about doing double days, that's what he's essentially talking about. He's talking about maybe a 20 miler on Saturday and then a 15 miler on Sunday, so that the overall weekend mileage is much higher. Doing those back-to-back long runs is going to essentially help your body learn how to run on very tired legs, which is really the big goal of ultramarathoning, is being able to continue running and continue moving forward when you are exhausted and don't want to do it.
yeah, fatigue resistance is the name of the game.
The game.
And train your stomach.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's
what about
really
100 miles? What kind of volume for 100?
so to know that me personally, to feel that I'm ready for it, I'm putting up repeated 200-mile months. So that means that I'm somewhere in the 50 to 60 miles per week.
Yeah. Which people would say is not that high mileage when it comes to ultra
I
marathoning.
I think that I am remarkably low mileage.
Yeah.
I would like, but like you pointed out, you have to make sure that you have time to recover from everything.
Mhm.
I think if I had a greater window of recovery, that I would put myself higher and try to get more like 70 to 80 miles in during the week, or like 50 to 60 miles, but then several hours of cross training on a bike or an
Mhm.
Olympic or something that isn't necessarily the same running pounding on me
Right.
would get in several extra hours of cross training.
Mm.
You can do that with all of these distances of maintain your mileage, but then throw on an extra hour-long bike at the end of your long run. Keep your long run it is, but when you finish, grab a snack and then go get on a stationary bike for an hour. It's a way to build up the aerobic volume without beating your body up quite as much.
Perfect. All right. So let's talk about pacing.
Okay, so depending on the distance, 50K up to 250 plus mile races, they vary quite a bit depending on what kind of terrain you're running on. It could be really difficult to determine what the pacing is for a particular ultra,
Yeah.
especially if what you're used to running is, say, a half marathon. If you're used to racing 13 miles, trying to figure out how do I pace out 62 miles seems bonkers. Trails aren't roads. They're very different. It's a very different running experience. Hills are very different than flat. Downhills are going to put a beat up on your body in a way that you're like, oh, if you go downhill, you can go so much faster. You may be, but you may just torch your quads and not be able to finish the race. 62 miles is very different than 26 miles. So you've got to figure out what is the ultra that I'm going to do so that you can decide if it's a basically well-groomed course 50K, you
Mhm.
can try to pace it similarly to a marathon. If it's not, if it's a 100 miler and you've never done anything longer than 26, you're like, all right, so here's some hopes and dreams of some time goals that I have. I'd like to finish somewhere around 24 hours because that's a big number that people like to put on ultras.
Yeah.
So figure out what that pace breaks down to for 24 hours.
Mhm.
And then figure out what that pace breaks down to if you went slower and you ran it in 26 hours. What if you had an amazing day and you did it in 23 hours? And now you have this wide range of pace goals.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that those paces include stopping at aid stations regularly. If
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I need to be holding 12-minute pace, that doesn't mean that when the race starts, you should slide into your 12-minute pace.
Yeah.
That means that you're running probably 10 to 11-minute pace and stopping periodically at aid stations.
Yeah, I just did the math, and 24 hours is 1,440 minutes. So that means that's 14 hours, basically, almost 14 and a half hours. I'm sorry, 14 and a half minute pace
Yes.
is what I'm going for. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
So that you're looking at about 14 and a half minute pace in order to complete the race in 24 hours, which when you say that out loud, that seems slow for some people because they're used to running maybe 10 or 11-minute pace or 9-minute pace or whatever in shorter races. But like you said, you also have to account for stoppage time.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not like soccer. You just add it in whenever you want.
When you stop at an aid station, go right ahead, stop your watch, but the clock at the race is
Right.
just going to keep going. Every
Especially
bathroom
if there's a
break
cutoff.
and every bathroom break that you take, the clock just keeps on rolling.
Yeah.
And we'll get into eating and hydrating in a second, but you may be able to get through a marathon without having to hit up a porta potty if things
Yeah.
are going smooth for you. You're not finishing an ultra without stopping somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Like you're just not going to do it. You're
Mhm.
going to have to make pit stops along the way. It's required. Your body is not going to be able to handle it. You're
Yeah.
going to be stopping regular at aid stations. If it's super hot outside, you get to aid stations and take in a lot of water. People will be dumping water on you. You might be carrying a pack the entire time. That's going to slow you down. There's a lot more involved in a trail race, especially if the aid stations are like spaced out. The stuff sponsored by UTMB, they've got their required list of gear that you have to have with you at all times. Just the minimum required gear makes your backpack 15 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that
So
affects pacing.
of course. So what would you say, like, how would they start the race? If they do the math, they're like, okay, I want to finish in 24 hours. So my goal pace would be like 14 and a half minute pace for the whole thing. Obviously that takes in bathrooms and rest stops and all of that thing.
Yeah, but
How would
still,
you?
you're going to be running. Like
Yeah.
if you're not used to training at that pace, it's probably going to be that pace on average, but that's going to include a bunch of walking breaks.
Right.
So my general advice is start easier than you think.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, so I know what my easy.
Don't try to bank time in a 100-mile race.
Yeah, but not exactly.
Right.
You're not going to bank time because you're taking it out quick because you feel fresh.
Right.
You still want to take it out super easy. If you're going for 100-miler,
Yeah.
you want to be in the level 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like
I-
you want to feel like you can go all day.
Forever. Yeah.
Like,
I
for
think that's one of my
hours-
I think that's one of my favorite things about the ultra marathons is the start line.
the starting gun.
The starting line I think is my favorite part because if you're at a 5K and they shoot the gun, everyone just takes off, right? Everyone's running and it's a high thing. And then at an ultra, a lot of them are just on the side of the road and you're like, okay, time to start the race. And they shoot the gun and then everybody just starts trotting nice and slow. Nobody's in a rush for anything, which is great.
Yeah,
Because you can't be.
The first one I ever did at Keys,
Yeah.
they had waves of starts because you're going
Mhm.
down the side of the road, and so they can't
Yeah.
do a mass start. And so they fire off every 3 minutes another group of 6 people. And so they like, all right,
Daytona
group
did
one.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Group 1, you guys are up. Group 2, you guys are up. And you and a handful of other people start the line, and he goes, and go. And
Yeah. There's
But-
no gun or anything.
but no one takes off. It was the first time that I'd ever done 100 miles.
Yeah.
And I'm used to running 5Ks. I think that was the race before that I had done was a 5K.
Yeah.
He said go, and the person next to me didn't jolt off the line. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll start going.
I
And
guess we're not
felt
in
like-
Kansas anymore, Toto.
I felt like I was super comfortable,
Mhm.
and then I realized that I was holding 7:30 pace. I'm like, nope,
Yeah,
this
not a good
is
idea.
way too fast.
Yeah.
Way too fast. Even last race, at one point I was leading the last race. I don't think I screwed my pacing up. I think there were a few other issues. We had a previous podcast on this one.
Yeah.
But I don't think I screwed my pacing up because it felt so easy.
Yeah,
I
so
just
that's really the key. is
Yeah.
that when you are starting the race, you really have to just go out and be in complete conversational pace. That first third of the race. So I loved, I actually listened to Sally's podcast recently about this, and she was talking about breaking your race into thirds, which I thought was a great strategy. Is like the first third of your race, no matter how long you're running, if you're doing an ultra marathon, the first third of your race needs to feel super comfortable and super easy. You could just go all day. You could take selfies. You can record video. You can have conversations with people along the way. You should feel so comfortable, and you should feel like you're going too slow.
Yeah, that sounds right. And then I would suggest that you don't really start trying to push until the final third.
Yeah.
If you still feel like you have the ability to push, but you have no chance of having the ability to push the final third if you pushed at the start.
Exactly.
You just don't.
Yeah.
But that's really the only time that you might want to start thinking about more of a race mentality of chasing people down. Final third of the race.
Yeah.
And it varies
Well,
a
because
little bit depending
anything
on
can
the
happen
course.
in that final third of the race is really where everyone falls apart most of the time. So or
And if
don't,
you're not
right?
falling apart, that's where you can start passing people.
Correct, because there's just a lot of changes that happen in that last third, because some people completely fall apart. Some people are feeling totally fine, but the lead, if you're looking at who's in what place, that changes all over the place because of how different people's bodies are responding that day.
Yeah, so you take it out super easy, hoping that you can start moving a little bit better on the back third of it.
Mhm.
But you pretty much always want to feel in control.
Yeah.
And that might mean if it's early in the race and there's a big hill, that you're walking up that hill
Mhm.
because you don't want to burn matches in the opening couple of hours of a 20-hour race.
Yeah.
You don't want to burn all your matches in hour two. It's
Mhm.
just not going to go well. You push yourself over lactate threshold level and you start churning at lactate. It's going to take a while for your body to figure out what to do with that. And you want to just try and make sure that it is much more under control. And
Yeah.
that might mean a lot more walking than you would think earlier in the race when you still feel fresh so
Yeah.
that you can feel as fresh as possible later in the race.
Yeah, for sure. All right, another big piece. Anything else that you want to say about pacing?
No, you want to talk about eating?
Yeah, we have to talk about eating and hydrating, because this is really the whole game. The whole game of ultra marathoning is making sure that you fuel your body correctly. Yes, I shouldn't say the whole game. Yes, the running is important. The strength training in the preparation for the 100 miles is extremely important. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my little push, as always. Strength training and mobility training have to be a huge part of your training. You cannot just go out and run. In order for your body to tolerate and be more durable so that it can sustain it all of those miles, you have to have strength. Your muscles have to be able to support your joints. You have to have strong ligaments, strong tissues, like and your body needs to move properly. So strength and mobility at minimum twice per week, maybe even 3 times per week. I would say strength training, good strength training twice per week. We're doing full body activities, making sure you're hitting all the major muscles that we runners need to train, and then doing mobility. I would even say 5 to 7 days per week. I totally think that doing mobility every day is a good idea, especially if you're trying to run these distances. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be a 10-minute mobility routine, but just moving your body, making sure that your joints and your tissues, everything is moving and things don't tighten up and form restrictions, are super important. And that also carries over into race day. And this is one of the things that Kevin and I have been talking about too, because in watching him run these races, one of the big things that I see in his body, and of course, this is my physical therapist lens as well. One of the big things that I see is that his body just continues to tighten throughout the course of his race. His stride gets smaller, his steps become more shuffly. He just doesn't have the mobility and the range of motion, which is why one of our strategies that we are going to be trying out next time is doing regular mobility breaks during the race as well. So I do think that is a very important thing. I've given that tip to our other clients that have done ultra races as well. And when they've stopped and taken these mobility breaks throughout the course of their races, they just feel so much better and they're able to keep going.
Yeah, I would have pushed back on this before, but given my current circumstances, I think that that might be like an absolute game changer for me.
Everything happens for a reason. We just have to decide whether or not we're going to learn the lesson or be given another way to learn the lesson down the road.
Yes, I could learn the lesson this time, or I could shuffle through the back half of my next race.
Yeah. There you go. All right, let's talk about eating and hydrating, because this really is a big piece of
Yeah,
completed an
I
ultra
didn't come up with
marathon.
this quote, and I have absolutely no idea who did, but someone described ultra running as a moving eating contest. Like it's just a mobile eating contest
Yeah.
because it is. You have to take in a huge amount of food while continuing to move your body down the road, down the trail, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is depending on the effort that you're putting out, it will vary the amount of food that you can take in. Depending on the distance you're covering, depending on the conditions. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it at crazy altitude? Your intake will vary a little bit. But in general, a big, broad statement, you're aiming to take in 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates every single hour,
Yeah.
every hour, over and over for hour after hour.
Hmm.
If your effort level is a little bit lower, you can be at the lower end of this. But I'm not saying that you should then fall off this. I'm saying that you should try to be hitting around 60 grams an hour for a lower effort, not a slower pace, but simply a lower effort. This is not about pacing. The people who are the fastest at this, the people who are just barely beating cutoffs, it all depends on how hard of an effort that feels. The people who are winning, just because they're going so fast, doesn't mean that it doesn't feel like L2 for them.
Yeah.
And so that food is all based off of what your current effort level is. So for lower effort, or if your race happens to be at a very high altitude, it is just difficult for the body to digest at super high altitude. You have to be
Hmm.
careful with taking in a whole lot of carbohydrates at high altitude. If you are out there for a ridiculously long adventure, then you're going to have to start considering taking in protein, taking in fats, but you want to do this in a careful and practiced manner
Yeah.
because your body doesn't digest fat and protein as well. And so they may cause some GI issues. The suggestion may be that you take in some sort of protein or fat, but with carbohydrates, that it's not just you're not taking a spoonful of coconut oil, you're having something that it has some protein, has some fats to it, but as part of a thing. Trail quesadillas are popular for a reason. They're cheesy and greasy and delicious, but it's all wrapped in a tortilla and there's tons of carbs inside of that thing.
Right.
There's gels out there that do the branched chain amino acids that are trying to be like, oh, it's like taking in proteins. It's not exactly.
No, it's
Like for
not.
the last couple of ultras, I've pounded cold protein shakes
Yeah.
partway through. And I practiced it. And
Hmm.
quite honestly, an iced down protein shake is delicious partway through.
Like a milkshake.
It really is, but you got to practice that one.
Yeah.
Real food is great if you've practiced real food
Yeah.
and if you're going at an effort level that you can continuously chew throughout. Sometimes chewing just sounds like a terrible option. And while
Yeah.
real food options are great, it's good for palate fatigue where you're like, I just don't want to take in all these sweet gels and goos. Maybe
Hmm.
you just don't like the consistency or whatever the thing of the gel is. One, there are dozens of brands of gels. Try some, give it a shot.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful with the real food to make sure that it is, in general, a pretty dense carb because you don't want to be carrying like a plate of spaghetti seems like a great option, but that's not easily, and you want to make sure that it's still low in fiber. There's some fruit options that'd be like, oh, I'll carry an apple. I could not do that. An apple's not going to work well for me,
No.
but
Also
grapes
because
work
of the
well for me.
fiber too.
Right, like
Like
the
you
fiber's
don't
not
want
going to
high
go well.
fiber foods either if you can avoid them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need the carbs, but if it's real food, try and make sure that it's staying in low fiber because you're
Yeah.
already going to be stopping at the bathroom. Don't try and increase that amount.
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree. I do think that when you are getting into the longer races, more like 50 miles and above, that you are going to likely be better served eating some sort of real food. So making sure that you practice not just relying on drinks and gels and the processed stuff. That stuff is going to be helpful, and that stuff may make up a large portion of your nutrition during that race. But it is important to practice real food things too. So some of the things that Kevin has used and that I've also seen at the aid stations. And I think that will be a good thing for Kevin for you to tell people what you've seen at the aid stations as well, because it's important that if that's what they're having, you should try practicing with those because you never know how your body's going to react. So some of the things that Kevin likes, potato chips or Pringles or something like that, so that if he gets overdone with the sweet, we can switch over to salty and still have some good carbs. And then there's also some fat and stuff that comes with the potato chips. I see a lot of M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, Skittles, like they've got all sorts of candy at the aid stations. They've got Starburst and Skittles and all sorts of things. They've got like Doritos, all different types of chips. They've got pretzels. They a lot of times they'll have the quesadillas, they'll have the ramen broth
Mhm.
because that's really salty, so that's really good for electrolytes. So the noodles will give you good carbs, and then the broth will give you both liquid and the salt for the electrolytes. So that's a popular one. What else have you seen? Peanut butter and jelly
Uh,
sandwiches are very popular.
yeah, grilled cheese, peanut butter and jelly, various
Yeah.
little sandwiches. It's all stuff that's still pretty easily handheld items.
Yeah. That you can just take on the go.
Yeah, that's kind of your big one.
Yeah.
From a hydrating perspective, again, drastic range, and it depends a lot on the conditions. How hot and humid is
Mhm.
it? But in ballpark, let's give a mid-range of 16 to 24 fluid ounces, which is somewhere in the 500 to 750 milliliters. I looked it up for any of our metric listeners.
Per what?
That's your the volume of water that you're looking to take in every hour.
Every
16 to
hour.
24 ounces or 500 to 750 milliliters every single hour. I do it predominantly in sports drink,
Mhm.
but there are other people who take in a lot more food and then take in mostly plain water,
Mm.
which works. I do sports drink because then I get the electrolytes out of my sports drink. If you're doing plain water, it's fine. You just got to make sure that you're balancing your electrolytes somewhere, which also has a super wide range, even wider than the hydration range. Hydration, 16 to 24 fluid ounces is great, but electrolytes, 200 to 1500 milligrams of sodium per hour,
Yeah.
depending on if you are a salty or not very salty sweater. And then that varies based off of your sweat rate. And that varies based off of how tired and hydrated you are, whether you're at altitude, whether it's humid. There's so many things. You can go get a sweat test. There's places
Yeah.
around that you can get a sweat test. It gives you a ballpark starting point, but then you have to be able to adjust off of that.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be able to go up or down.
And again, this goes back to you need to practice this stuff in training. You need to know in training also the weather conditions, whether it's hot and humid or cold, like these, all of these things make a difference in how much you're sweating and how many electrolytes you're losing per hour. So you need to know if you're out there running and you finish and you taste salt, you're probably a saltier sweater. If you see those white marks on your clothing or on your hat or on your bandana or whatever it is that you wear on your head, if you see those white lines, you're probably a more salty sweater. So it's going to be more important for you to help replace those electrolytes during your race. And everybody is an individual, which is why it all goes back to training. Is it going to be fun for you to practice these things in training? Are you going to enjoy this process to figure out, am I a salty sweater? Am I not a salty sweater? Like, how much water should I be drinking? These are all the things that you practice in the training process leading up to the race.
And when you practice them, you may end up having some training runs that are miserable
Totally.
because you tried taking in higher salt that
Yep.
day and it just wrecked you.
Yeah.
Or you tried taking in lower salt and
Mhm.
just trying to survive off of water and food
Yeah.
instead of a sports drink, and that buried you. You're going to have some days. Do you want to even try and consider heat training along the way? Like
Mm.
there are things that to be taken into account of how many various steps do you want to put into the training
Yeah.
process? And a
Well,
lot of it is just trying stuff.
and I think that's a really good thing to point out because I think a lot of times people think, oh, this did not feel good in training, so I must not be prepared for this. And that's not what's happening here at all. What's happening is that you are practicing things and you are learning lessons. So you are learning what works and what doesn't work. And so just going into training, understanding that some of your runs might feel terrible because you're going to be experimenting throughout the whole training cycle, and some you're going to find part of the goal of training is to find the things that don't work so that you know better the things that do work so that you can avoid those things on race day that don't work for you and focus more on the things that do.
Yeah, and just because it doesn't feel great in a particular training run doesn't mean that it's bad. In order to be able to take in 90 grams of carbs an hour, you have to train your stomach to do it. And it
Mhm.
is trainable. You
Yeah.
can train your stomach to take in more food every hour, to take in more food on a constant basis, but it's not going to be comfortable on every run that you're doing it. Those runs
Yeah.
where you're trying to up your carb intake are going to be uncomfortable runs.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the advice with ultra marathons about nothing new on race day, right? Because this is one of the things that I think that you and I have debated about in your ultra journey as well, because this is one of the old adages, right? Nothing new on race day. We've probably all heard this. You should always practice your clothing and your shoes and all the things beforehand. But I think that ultra marathoning is interesting in this way because you have to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more adaptable because you have eaten things during your ultras that you've never practiced with before.
On almost every ultra, I have taken
No.
in things that I'm like, I come back off of a loop and you're like, all right, what did you have? I'm like, I had this and this. You're like, you did what now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because don't try something new on race day is very logical.
Yeah.
Only do the things that you've practiced because that's going to put you in the best result. But you don't practice how your body feels at mile 80.
Right.
Like
Because
at no point do you practice that.
you never get to training. You never get to 80 miles in training. That's not a good
Right.
idea.
And what your body feels like at mile 80, even if you've done a 100 mile,
Yeah.
is not necessarily what your body's going to feel like at mile 80 the next time. So
Mhm.
you don't know. There's no preparation for that, which is why I think you just got to try a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because if you can figure out, okay, I cannot eat this,
Yeah.
my body rejects this. You know, when you get to the aid station table and they've got all this stuff laid out in front of you, because there's 4 picnic tables lined up at the one that I've gone
Yeah.
to, literally 4 picnic tables full of foods and drinks. And you come in, they're like, what can we get for you? And the one time I grabbed a cup of mashed potatoes. I had not practiced like boil in the cup mashed potatoes, and they handed it to me and sent me on my way. And I'm like, this is delicious and amazing. But I had definitely never practiced taking in hot mashed potatoes at 1 o'clock in the morning. That was not a thing that I practiced.
Right.
So I think that you want to try as many food options as you can. You want to try them while you're running different efforts. You want to try them at different times of the day. You want to try running at different times of the day. You want to practice, definitely practice what you know is going to be the fuel available on course. A lot of them will have a certain brand of a gel that they're going to always have at the aid station, or this is the drink that we're going to have at the aid station.
Yeah.
Practice that. Make sure that you know that's good
Mm.
because you can train your body to get to a point that it's going to be okay with that. Buy a lot of the common aid station food, even if you don't plan on using it, because maybe at mile 80, suddenly that sounds like a brilliant idea. And it'd be nice to know if it's going to work out for you. Like a race quesadilla, trail quesadilla has never sounded like a good idea. But last race, I wanted to get to the finish line because I wanted one. I knew they had them at the finish line. I just didn't want to even attempt it during because I'd never tried that
Yeah.
and it didn't sound great.
That
You
sounds
want to practice so that you can set yourself up for success. You want
Yeah.
as much routine as possible, but ultimately you need a routine so it gives you a foundation that you can adapt from. That is your key to success in an ultra is a plan and a lot of flexibility and adaptability.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also a lot of other things that you can practice based on the specific race that you're going to be doing. So I think again, we're going to mention a couple here, but you can pick and
I
choose
did make quite a list.
what's going to be applicable for you. So one of the big things that I think that you should practice is running at different times of the day, because I think this is one of the things that Kevin does really well. And I think this is one of his strong suits in his training that sets him up for success in the ultra marathons. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that they wake up and they run first thing in the morning. They try to run in the coolest part of the day, which is great for that training run. You're going to feel better on that training run, but you're not preparing your body to run at 3 p.m. with full sun if all of your runs are at 6 a.m. So it's in your ultra marathon, you're probably going to be running at 3 p.m. with full sun. Maybe it's going to be cloudy that day. Who knows? But running at different times of the day and seeing how your body feels at different times of the day, I think is very important to do.
Yeah, just some very practical ones. If it's going to be hot, figure out how to run with an ice bandana. If you're going to be carrying a lot of fluid in a vest, you better practice doing that.
Yeah.
If
That
you're
was one of the
carrying-
big ones that you had to practice at the beginning because your back muscles had to build up strength. So that I will tell you guys this. If you are practicing running with a vest, and especially if you have a water bladder in that vest, don't start with a full water bladder the first time you put that vest on. Because I remember Kevin, we filled it up. We didn't even think about it, right? We just filled up the water bladder and off he went. He had to take it off after maybe 10 miles or something. I forget what you were doing that day, but you were so sore because you're like, this is heavy carrying this. So you have to train your body to be able to carry more weight. So start small. Start with a weighted vest, or not a weighted vest, a vest that has just a couple things in it so that you can get used to what just the vest feels like, and then add things to it. Add the water, add the gels, add the different things that you're going to carry along the way, because your postural muscles, your neck, your shoulders, like all of that, you need to build up the endurance and the strength in all of those body parts.
Yeah, practice hiking. If you're in a very hilly race, practice hiking. There was a race that I forget which one it was, but I did a lot of walking and I got a blister in a spot that I've never gotten from running, but my foot moves differently when I was walking hour after hour. I think
Oh,
that was Daytona
yeah.
where I couldn't run anymore because
Yeah,
hernia
you
was
had to have
killing
foot
me.
care done at mile 82.
Yeah, but I had another blister that was back on my heel that I don't get from running, but I get it from walking mile an hour after hour. And
Yeah.
so if you're planning on doing a lot of hiking because it's a super hilly race, practice hiking because that's a
Hmm.
skill that you don't just naturally have because you can run. Just
Hmm.
because you can run does not mean that you can hike. Practice running downhill. Practice running downhill in a way that your quads are not numb after you do it. If
Hmm.
you know that the race has a lot of downhill and you're planning on running the downhill, there should be a good amount of downhill running in your training so
Yeah.
that you can prep your quads for that. Because as much as you love strength training, there's not much that preps your quads for downhill running like running down a hill.
Yeah, but you have to be careful because if you do too much of that in training, then your body's not recovering well for it. So there's the whole thing there. A couple other ones: running at midday, running as the sun sets, running with a headlamp if you've never done that before, especially because you're going to be, if you're doing a long race, it's going to be at night. You got to have a headlamp on.
You might have to change your headlamp in the middle
You
of the
might have
night.
to, yeah, practicing running, sitting down for a period of time, and then running again because things are going to tighten up on you. Maybe you need to sit down and take a rest break, or change your shoes, or change your socks, or do these other things. Maybe you practice doing an outfit change during one of your really long runs. That could be something that you practice too. But like when you practice all these different elements and you think about all these different elements ahead of time, then it's just one more thing that you is not a surprise on race day. You're like, okay, yes, I've done this before. I've practiced this. Even if race day is completely different, you have some experience with that thing.
And the biggest thing of practicing all of these just shows that you can do such a wide range of things in your running
Yeah.
that if something brand new comes up on race day, you're like, oh, it's just another thing. I haven't exactly practiced this, but I've practiced so many things. I've figured it
Yeah.
out. And I think that's ultimately one of the biggest ways to succeed in
Hmm.
ultra running is the ability to figure it out and not freak out when something comes up. I
Yeah.
think that's the key.
Yeah. And I just thought of something. I'm going to make a checklist for you guys. And if you want to download that free checklist, all you have to do is go to our show notes. So if you go to realliferunners.com/, let's see, I don't even know, but wherever the show notes are, we will put a link for that in the show notes. I can't remember what, because I don't think it's just, it might be just the episode number, but I don't think it's that simple. But if you go to the website, if you go to realliferunners.com and you click on podcast, you'll be able to get to all of our episodes and all of our show notes just from there. So, yeah, we'll put a link. I'll make a checklist. That sounds like a great resource for people.
Excellent plan.
All the things to practice.
I
All right,
like it.
Kev, do you have anything else that you want to mention before we wrap today's up?
No, if you have an inkling, you are capable of doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I've got. If
I
there's an inkling,
I believe that no matter what goal we're talking about, if you have a desire, then you have the ability. There's no reason that
yep.
you would have a desire to do something if you genuinely did not have the ability to do it. So if you have the desire, you are able to do it. You just need the right preparation, you need the right training, you need the right support. And the other thing that I want to mention in watching Kevin, and I hope that you would agree with this, I think that ultra running, especially, is much more about the mental toughness and durability and resilience than even the physical side of things. I think your mental toughness, or not toughness, but your mental strength and your ability to just force yourself to keep going plays a bigger role than the physical preparation does. What do you think?
Yeah, because in road racing, things tend to finish faster.
Yeah,
In ultras,
you just got to keep going.
yeah, once the physical pain is there, the physical
Yeah.
discomfort is there,
Your body's going to
and
want to shut down at some point,
yes,
especially if you're running 100 miles. Your body's just going to tell you that it's done, and you have to be strong enough mentally to just keep going.
yeah, and the same thing happens in a marathon, but you have to just keep going for a few more miles.
Yeah.
In an ultra, you have to keep going for several more hours, and that's a very different mental thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah. Yeah. So mental training totally needs to be a part of your training and your repertoire, like getting stronger mentally, starting to see some of those dark sides of your brain, because your brain's always going to want to offer lots of dark sides to you at all times. Being able to be there, be in it, and continue to move forward is going to be really powerful. So
Well, that's
we
why
will talk.
outside of listening to our podcast, you should do some runs without headphones.
Yeah.
you should spend some time alone in your head. Even if you plan on having music or whatever throughout the entire race,
Yeah.
you should spend some time alone in your head.
Mhm.
One, I think you should race a good chunk of it without stuff in your ears because you're going to get a lot out of the experience. But
Yeah.
I think that you should do some training just to see what happens when you are able to hear the voices in your head.
The voices, they're saying things again.
I mean, they're always talking,
They're
but
always
we're in a
talking.
world that we just don't ever listen to them.
Yeah, so true. All right, you guys, if this was helpful, we would love for you to leave a comment. If you still have questions after this episode, we would love for you to reach out. You can leave a comment on Spotify. You can shoot us an email over at hello@realliferunners.com. You can reach out on Instagram. Whatever your favorite platform is, we are there. So find us on those platforms. Make sure you hit follow. Make sure you share. Leave us a review, leave us a comment, and help us spread the word. Help us to help more runners. And stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to be talking more about crewing an ultra marathon. So if you want to be a part of someone else's crew, this is going to be what you need to know. Or you can also take that episode and send it to whoever is going to be helping you in your ultra marathon as well. So as always, thanks for joining us. This has been the Real Life Runners podcast, episode number 470. Now get out there and run your life.